This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze, your journey through life. My guest today has followed in the footsteps of his father. Now, for any of you who are listening today who may be that millennial generation, I know you don't want to be like mom, you don't want to be like dad, you want to be your own person. But sometimes there's some great gratitude in following in the footsteps of somebody who you admire. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about who you are and um, why you followed in Dad's footsteps.
Yeah, thanks, Karen, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm the youngest of six children, and it's interesting. It's not that I'm purposely following in my dad's footsteps. It is that it's an evolution that has occurred over the years, and it's something that I keep him in the back of my mind at all times. Um, some people, and we're pretty strong Catholics. A lot of people say at times, "What would Jesus do?" In this point in time, I think about what my dad would do, and so I'm the youngest of six kids, and my dad was a basketball coach. Um, and he was a teacher as well at our high school in Connecticut. He was the first employee hired at the school, and he was our basketball coach for 50 years.
Wow.
And he was also a teacher and an administrator, athletic director. But as a young boy, he would take me to his practices when I was a little kid, and I fell in love with basketball. So I played basketball in youth. I played in high school for my dad. He was my coach. That wasn't easy, but that was a whole other story. I played in college. I was fortunate to go to college for free to play basketball. And then I coached with my dad for about 20 years afterwards. And Karen, the beauty of what my dad did was he is the all-time winningest coach in New England. He won 878 games. And if
Unbelievable.
anyone ever brought that up, he would say, yes, but I also lost 325 games. And then he won 11 state championships, which is a Connecticut record. If anyone ever brought that up, he would say, yes, but I also lost 7 state championship final games, which are tough, brutal losses. And people would say to me, why did your dad always say that? The reason he said that is because he wants people to know, and he let all of his players know, and all the thousands of people he impacted, that yes, I've won a lot. I have received a lot of accolades. I'm in 4 or 5 different Hall of Fames, and there's been a lot of articles written about me, but I am only at that point because I got really good dealing with losses and setbacks and defeats. He lost more than anybody. So I think there's certainly, and we're deep into athletics in our life, but I'm also an entrepreneur. And the two, Karen, are hand in hand. And so when you get good at dealing with defeats and losses and setbacks, there's nothing that can stop you. And that is what we teach a lot of our clients. That's what we've always taught, our players. And that's my dad's point. He passed away about a year and a half ago at 92 years old, but he was a monumental figure. There were a few thousand people at his funeral, which shows the impact that he had on many, many people. So he was an incredible guy. But one of the things is that he used to teach to us. We do that to this day because it is a brilliant idea that before you can reach the top, before you can be elite at anything, whether it's as a parent, it's in business, it's it's as a partner, a teacher, anything, you have to deal with losses and setbacks really well. Because if you can't handle that, you're going to have problems.
I'm
So,
so glad that,
sorry, I went on a little tangent there, but
no,
um,
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I grew up in a generation where you didn't talk about your losses because if you lost at something, whether it's you didn't do great on a test or you were late handing something in, you didn't talk about that because it made you into a bad person. And I didn't understand loss until probably the last 10, 15 years when I started looking back thinking that I just wasn't good enough for all the things that I've done in my life. And then I woke up one morning and I said, wait a second, who told me I wasn't good enough? Yes, maybe my parents did bring me up wanting me to be on top and be a winner, but they never said anything bad to me when I wasn't. I said it to myself. And I think that's where a lot of problems occur, that we're waiting for that person to tell us we're not a good enough player, we're not a good enough partner, we're not a good enough in business. And so we say it to ourselves to protect ourselves from the coaches of the world.
yeah,
Now, you happen to be coaching one of my favorite sports, and it only became my favorite sport in the last 2 years because my son is working for the WNBA. So now I'm finally starting to understand basketball.
yep. That's awesome. I was watching the game last night. New York beat Atlanta, and now New York is in the semifinals, the
Yep.
WNBA. Who does
Uh,
he work for for
so
the
he
whole
works
league?
for the Dallas Wings, and this was a tough year for the Dallas Wings.
Okay, okay,
But it's the first time I'm looking at a team that didn't do as well as we thought they would do. But I see potential. I'm seeing what you and your dad are talking about that, okay, it can only get better from here.
yeah,
What do we have to do to change? And will next year be a winning year? We don't know. But if they try to do better, that's what it's all about. And you'll keep your
yeah,
fan base as well.
yeah. And Karen, that's interesting. How did your son get into basketball?
So
Briefly.
really his first love was baseball. Um, and he did work for the Guardians for a while, but there wasn't room for growth for him. And his second love happens to be basketball. And when
Okay.
he got the call for the job, he said, you know what? This is an up and coming league. This is what I want to do. Um, and interestingly enough, you know, he looks at life the same way. I have to lose at a few things before I can get to the top. If I get to the top right away, wow, what is there for me? I either have to
Yeah,
step here, but I'm probably going to fall down.
yeah.
Maybe if I learn how to fall first, then I can learn how to climb.
Well, there's no question about it, Karen. And those of you, those are the folks who get overnight success stories, or and this is what people who win the lottery have so many struggles. They don't know what to do with the success. They don't know what to do with the excess that they have at that point. So you have to go. It's a process, and you have to go through difficult times. You have to go through losses and setbacks before you can get to an elite level. If you get to an elite level without dealing with losses and setbacks, that is a house of cards and is going to fall down, and there's no foundation there, and that's a problem. And so your son with the Dallas team, and this is what you do in business, you do this in personal development, you do this in sports. And I, as crazy as it sounds, I would love the opportunity. I'd rather be at Dallas where they have a lot of work to do and try to figure stuff out. Now, great to be in the be Las Vegas, the Aces, and they won the
Sure.
championship last year, and they're the
Yeah.
favorite this year. But Dallas, what you do is you have to model yourself after better organizations, better teams. It's like follow proven methods of success. As a business guy, I'm not gonna go and do what the knucklehead down the street does who doesn't have any customers. I'm going to go to the number one guy in my industry and I'm going to follow him and say, what does he do? I'm going to pattern myself after him. And that's what Dallas, and I'm sure your son's,
Yes,
smart enough to realize this. You pattern your franchise after the franchises that are doing great. And how do you do that? You got to, this is you're talking, you brought up basketball, Karen. So now
that's okay. Love it.
it's hard. You got to draft really well. You have to then develop your players. You have to have elite personal development so the players, the women get better. And then you got to hire a good coach. Sounds familiar, right?
Right.
So and by the way, I offline, I'd like to connect with your son. I'd love to talk with him and introduce myself.
He would love that. I know he would.
Yeah.
So everything that you are talking about, the everyday person who is listening to this podcast can really learn from it because, again, we think that we have to get the best, we have to go to the best college, get the best grades, get the best of everything before we're going to be noticed. But all that is great, okay? But we have to work ourselves through it. We have to learn. We have to be mindful of what is going on around us. Someone asked me the other day, Karen, you've been podcasting for 11 years. So why don't you have millions of listeners? Well, I know why I'm podcasting. Okay. Would I love to have millions of listeners? Yeah, that probably would be great. But I'm podcasting to make myself a better person. I'm learning from you, Tom, right now. And wow, what other job could I have where I could learn every day from someone? Now, it doesn't mean I have to believe in everything that you say. I might hear something and say, you know what, I have to do it differently than Tom. Or I say, wow, I like the way he's doing it. Let me see if I can follow his footsteps. And it doesn't mean we have to be clones of each other. So
100%. 100%. And you do, you get, Karen, I'm sure you get to talk to a lot of unique people and you get to experience a lot of different perspectives. And right, you don't have to agree with all of them 100%, but it's interesting. I didn't know you've done it 11 years. You're doing a great job. But what's interesting is that you know you see so many different types of people, and I am in my own lane. I am good at a few things, and I'm terrible at most things. But I'm very good at a few things, and I stay in that lane. And in sports, it is so brilliant that how sports intersect with everything that we do. You can be a kid from a project in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is right down the street from me, or you can be a kid from Cleveland, Ohio, or Akron, Ohio. Obviously, LeBron James, with very little economic benefits that you grew up with. And obviously these, some of these guys, LeBron is an elite, physical specimen. He has God-given gifts and talents. But I could name 1,000 kids who were behind the eight ball physically, economically, but because they had a love for athletics and sports, and they had, ready for this, they had a good coach, they became good. They got better. They created opportunities for themselves. They go to college. They go to college for free, hopefully, and then it's off to the races. And it all happened. They never would have been. There are hundreds, 900 kids who have gone to college, okay, as athletes because my father pushed them to do that. They would not have gone to college if my father wasn't their mentor, their second father, which he was to many of these kids. So when there's 4 or 5 thousand people that show up to someone's funeral, you did something right.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
impacted a bunch of people. Now he happened to do it through sports, which is how I do it through mentorship and entrepreneurship. But sports athletics is at the forefront, and your son appreciates a lot of this, I'm sure. But um, my dad was a high school teacher. We have 6 kids. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I have 3 sisters, 2 brothers. My mom raised us. My mom worked in the cafeteria at our high school, and it was a Catholic high school. So Catholic teachers don't get paid much today. They made a lot less back then. So we were scrapping and clawing, and we didn't have a lot. And my dad would have second and third jobs in the summer. We all turned out great. We appreciated what they did for us. And you realize that growing up that wow, this is we didn't know we didn't have a lot.
Right.
To this day, my family is so close, maybe because of that, because we didn't have a lot. We had each other, and that's why family is so important to us. But sports gives you this ability to always think you're never out of it. You're never out of it. You're never out of the game. There's always a chance to come back. In defeats and setbacks and losses, there's never an opportunity where you can't come back and get yourself back in the game. You're down 20 points. Your son would know this. You're down 15. You cut it to 6. Give yourself a chance to get back and win. Son of a gun, Karen, life is the same way.
Oh, absolutely. In I was reading something online today. I belong to this group on Facebook. It's called the Ethel Circle, and it's women who are basically 45 and up. Many of them, feel like maybe they got married too early or their kids have moved away. There's something going on in their life that they're feeling incomplete. And
Mm-hmm.
this one woman wrote about how unhappy she is. And I wrote back and I said, I feel you. However, you're the only one who can make yourself happy. You're the only one who can win the game. You have to figure out what you can do and just take one step today. Take one step that says, hey, I like myself. I feel good about myself. And I spent a good portion of my life believing if I made everybody else happy, I was going to be happy. I was going to be successful. And I saw other people achieving what I wanted to achieve. And I felt like I was being held back. And it was my son, my youngest son, who said to me, Mom, you're depressed. And I looked at him and I said, oh, no, I'm not. And he goes, no, you are. You've been raising me. You raised my older brother. You're taking care of dad. You're concerned about your parents. What about you? And I said, well, someday. And he looked at me, goes, no. And that was the day that I realized what I wanted to do. 11 years ago, did I really know what a podcast was? Absolutely not. I spent a
Yeah.
lot of money on equipment that I didn't need, but I felt professional. And I got off and I started doing it. And that's when whatever that depression was started to go away.
Isn't that interesting, Karen? You maybe found your purpose.
Yes, exactly.
And when you do that, magic happens. And it's like there's an analogy that and thanks for sharing that. But once you find your North Star, or once you find your purpose, or once you find something, Karen, that gets you out of bed, you look forward to what is going to happen that day, you get a little pep in your step.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure your children have realized the change in mom since mom started doing this podcast thing, you know? and you literally you carry yourself in a different way. You have better energy. The law of attraction is 1000% correct. So then, as you are doing something you enjoy because you found your purpose or one of your purposes, you start getting better guests come into your life. You start having, you're interacting with different people, and opportunities start to open up. And that's I'm proud of you for that. That's awesome. And what we say is, and we have a lot of people who come to us. We turned our, and I've had businesses in the past, and once my dad died, I said I have to start getting, I have to start giving back. I got to start serving people on a higher level. So we started our company, which is called Professionals Winning, professionalswinning.com. And what we started doing was we started coaching former athletes, men and women, former athletes, because we know that the mentality of a former athlete. Now, a lot of former athletes, and these are people who are having jobs now, not professional. We deal with professional athletes as well, but we deal with people from all walks of life, first responders, teachers. But we have CEOs, we have world-class hedge fund managers, we have we have business owners, a lot of them, and we started out as former athletes, but then we started getting referrals from other people. But we use athletics as a basis for what we do. And every day we tell people this. Here's a foundation of when my father used to mentor his former players, Karen, would, in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, would come back to my dad when they had problems in life, whether it was relationships, their marriage, their business, their health, depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. And my father was very smart. He would say to these guys, look, I'm looking at you, and you're a mess. You just let your health go. So you got to get your physical body in order, number one. And then he says, this is how I think, that how everybody thinks. You stop going to church. You stop going to church. Now, church isn't for everybody. Faith is important, in my opinion. And it doesn't matter. I believe in God. You believe in whatever you want to believe in. But you got to believe, I think, in something. So
Exactly.
my father would tell people that, and I would say, wow. So he says, your health, you got your health in order, and you got to get your faith in order. He says, work on your physical body, you got to go to church, health and faith. Wow. Think about that one. That's powerful. Those are two unbelievable foundations for you to have. If you have your health and your faith, you can probably get yourself out of most anxiety and
Right.
depression if you feel physically strong and good, and then you have something that you believe in. So we extrapolated that. We say, listen, if you feel like shit, the first thing we do, four things. And now, as a basketball player, your son would get fired if the Dallas Stars missed most of their shots. As a basketball player, you want to make all your shots. And otherwise you're going to be looking for a podcast job, right? But you want to miss every day. You want to move every day. You got to get your body moving. The eye, you have to improve every day. You have to grow. You have to expand. You got to get better every day. Every day. Now, how do you get better? People say, well, you got to read, you got to watch, and you got to listen. Read great books, watch great videos on YouTube. Don't waste your time on social media. You can get a world-class education watching YouTube. So read a great book, watch great videos, listen to a great podcast. How you doing, Karen? See that? Improve every day. The S, serve every day. You got to make it about other people. My father used to say, it's not about me, it's about we. And so you got to serve anybody and everybody every day. And the last thing, my father wouldn't have liked this, but we say, shut up. Create a block of time every single day where you are by yourself in silence. Zip it. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And people are flabbergasted when we say this. And they're like, 20 minutes with no phone, no distract, no email, nothing. Well, what do we do? I go, oh, well, how about this? How about you think? How about you sit there and you think? How about you meditate? How about you pray? How about you journal? So if you can do these four things, and these four things have been proven by clients of ours who are PhD, doctors and much smarter than me. But if you can move every day, your physical body, there's a flow of chemicals that goes cruising through your body when you exercise, makes you feel great. If you can improve every day, get better, grow, expand your mind, if you can serve others, and if you can spend some time in silence by yourself, wow, Karen, there's nothing. I don't care how depressed you are, all the things that are going wrong in your life, those four things will turn you around. And then there's other strategies to keep the
Sure.
momentum going. But if you miss every day, I'm not a big acronym guy, however you say it, but those are four things that are going to get you back on track.
It's interesting because when my son said this to me, said, Mom, you're depressed, and my first reaction was, no, I'm not. Because I was making everybody happy. I was doing all these things, and I was told that's what was supposed to make me feel good. And when I realized he was right, that I needed to do something for me, it started out very simply. We have a stationary bike in our room, and my husband and I would go through spurts. We'd ride it. It'd sit there for a year or two. We'd ride it again.
Yeah.
And I made a commitment on that day. I'm going to ride this regularly. Now, I didn't put the stress on me to say every day for 30 minutes, okay? But I knew I had to say I'm going to ride it regularly. And I have been, okay?
Great.
Not necessarily riding it that I'm losing weight, but I'm maintaining and energizing myself. When I get off that bike, it's like, oh, look what I just did.
That's right.
10 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes 50 minutes just riding. And my mind is going in many directions. But what I stop my mind from doing is saying all the negative things. I think as soon as I start thinking negative, how can I change that? How can I move forward? I'm pedaling forward. I got to get my mind to go forward. And that's what I share with my clients. It's so easy for us to feel negative. It's easy for me to get off that bike and say, hey, I only burned off 100 calories, and yet I rode it for 50 minutes. Well, you know what? I wasn't pedaling very hard, but I got something else out of it. And that's the important key, is it
100%.
find those things.
100%.
When I watch athletes work so hard at their craft, I used to sit back and go, oh, I could never be an athlete. That is just exhausting. But if that's what you want to do, it's not exhausting. It's exhilarating.
100%. You're exactly right. And great job riding that bike. And don't stop riding that bike. What do you, Karen? What do you teach your clients? What do you do for your clients?
So the one thing that I share with my clients that I think is really important is that we all have this negative voice in us. I don't care how successful you are, okay? It's things we heard growing up, or it's things we thought we heard growing up. And so we keep perceiving constantly these negative things. And so what I teach people to do is recognize that voice, know it's real, you're not crazy, and ask yourself, would you say that to somebody else? And if not, what would you say to that person? How would you get that person to take the next step? And it's quite interesting that within the first session, most of my female clients are going, oh, that's all I have to do is keep taking baby steps. Yes, you don't have to play Mother May I and take giant steps. If you do it slowly, it's going to become routine. It's going to become your habit. It's going to be the things that are going to make you feel good. For the first probably 50 years of my life, I always tried to jumpstart everything I wanted. And like you were saying, I would jump, but then I'd fall 2 floors down.
Yeah.
And then I had more negative thoughts. Now, when you take that baby step, if it's not perfect, it's okay because you're going to take another step and keep going. And not everybody will get in that mindset. There are still going to be people like I was who believe that, hey, I want to be a life coach too, but I want to make 6 figures within 6 months. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
You better have a lot of people who are being referred to you
Yeah.
who have a lot of money.
Or a big advertising budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're right. And there's a guy who I adore, and he's a well-known psychologist, Phil Stutz. And there's a Jonah Hill did an incredible documentary on Phil Stutz called Stutz on Netflix. But he's an incredible guy, and one of his main points is which is what my father used to say in a different way. Phil Stutz says you're never exonerated from the pain. Like just understand that no matter how great things are going, you're never exonerated from the pain. It doesn't get any easier as you get older. It doesn't because you're mature, you're not going to have, no, you are not exonerated from any of this negativity. It's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure this is the best way I anticipate. I know I'm always on my toes, especially when things are going great. I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm like a basketball player dribbling down the court. Is someone going to come up and tip it from behind? My head's on a swivel. So I'm never surprised when shit goes wrong.
Yep.
Because I understand that's what's going to happen. You have to get elite at dealing with losses, setbacks, and defeats. And when you become good at that, it just rolls off you. But you're never, as Phil Stutz says, you're never exonerated from this stuff. So if you have that mentality, some people say, well, Tom, that's negative. No, it's not. It's realistic. And once you understand that you're never immune from that stuff, it's going to happen. When it does happen, it's not a big issue.
Well, and that's becoming mindful of what life really is. Life is not perfect. We've grown up in a society where we're taught about perfection, except we never see anybody who's perfect. My husband worked for Microsoft in their early days, and that was when Bill Gates still came and sat amongst his employees and talked to them. And at one meeting, he told everyone, when you get your review, you will never have a perfect review. He said, because none of us will be perfect. He said, so I don't want you walking out of a review feeling that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
He says, I want you to keep getting better. And when my husband came home and told me that, the first thing I thought was, oh, that's crazy. Like if I've met all the requirements, why can't I get a 5? Why am I getting a 3.5? And he said, nobody will ever have a 5. He said, now let's think about it. Is God perfect? God still has his challenges too.
Sure.
We create them for him. So
yeah.
as soon as my husband put it that way, it was like, oh my God, I don't have to be perfect anymore. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep working at being your best version of yourself.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And Bill Gates, that was a good coaching moment. And I think any coach worth their salt will tell you that. You are never, my father was the all-time winningest coach in New England. At 878 wins. He would still go to clinics when he was 75 to 80 years old. There were NBA coaches, PJ Carlissimo, your son may know this. He's an amazing college coach. He was a professional coach. Now he's a great announcer. he was giving a speech one day in a gymnasium or Mohegan Sun somewhere. There were 500 coaches there listening to a couple of speakers. My father went, and my father was in the second row taking notes. He was 78 years old. He had already won 825 games. So PJ Carlissimo was on the stage, and PJ Carlissimo looks into the crowd and goes, Vito, is that my father's name was Vito Montelli? Vito, is that you? And my father just, waves to PJ. They knew each other for years. He goes, what? He stops his whole talk, goes, I just want to, I can't believe this. I learned more from this guy, okay, than I've ever learned from any other coach in our times together that we spent going over X's and O's. PJ says that about my father. He says, this man, and he makes everyone turn and look, this guy is one of the elite coaches in the country at any level. And he's sitting here and he goes, Coach, show me your pad. My father had pages and pages of notes that he was taking. This is a world-class coach at 78 years old who's going to clinics because he knows he hasn't learned everything. There's still something he can learn. So you have, when what's your son's name?
Alex.
Who works for Dallas?
Alex. Yes.
So you have Alex watch this episode, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to give you something. If you go to YouTube, and this is for any of your listeners, whether you're a sports fan or not, you go to YouTube and you type in Vito Montelli, Montelli, and 11, Eleven. There is a video, there's a short movie that was made 6.5 minutes long by professionals at Madison Square Garden Network who followed my dad on his last game coaching. It was a state championship game in front of about 8,000 people at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And watch that video. Have your son watch the video.
Okay.
It's brilliant. We're in a game. We are down 10 at halftime to a really good team. We come back. We end up winning the game. And it is a fascinating. So quickly, we have a couple minutes.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So my dad was a well-known coach. So everyone knew at this state championship game, he had just turned 80 years old. So a couple of well-known sportscasters called him and say, hey, coach, is this going to be your last game? He says, well, I don't know. He knew it was. I don't know. Only God knows, he says, when. So one of the sports writers, or he was actually an announcer for MSG, says, Coach, I'm not going to be able to get to your game this weekend, but I'm sending my entire crew, my best New York Knicks MSG crew. I'm going to send them, and they're going to film the entire day. So they got there in the morning. They watch us get on the bus. They watch us train. They watch us pregame. And all of that footage we gave to a friend of ours who's a TV producer, and he created this 6.5 minute video, which is a little short movie. And we're down 10 at halftime. My dad comes out of the timeout or out of halftime, and he gets in front. He's walking with a cane, and he gets in front of his team, who was one of the best teams he ever had, very talented. And he says, hey, you got that look on your face like it's all over. It's not. It's not. You got 16 minutes. You got 16 minutes to play. Now get out there and play. Now, he says, you got your heads down like it's all over. It's not. You got 16 minutes, 16 minutes left. Now get out there and play. Now we went out there and they went off like a rocket, and we came back and we won. But that phrase is remarkable because I tell people this in life. We talked about it earlier, Karen. You're never down and out. I don't care what scenario you're in. Now, him saying to his players who are 17 and 18 years old, hey, you got that look on your face like it's all over. It's not. You got 16 minutes. 16 minutes, go out there and play. How brilliant is that for a life lesson? I mean, we tell 60-year-old men who are going through a brutal divorce, who are losing their business, who have gained a bunch of weight. I look at them and say, hey, it's not over. It's the equivalent of my father saying, hey, you got your head down like it's all over. It's not. You got 16 minutes. Well, in this guy's instance, you got another 30 years you could live. Hey, you're 60 years old. I know you got some setbacks. Now I know it sucks. I know you're dealing with some shit, but you got, it's not over. You got 16 minutes to go, or you got 30 years to go. So get out there and play. Watch that video and have your son
I
watch it, because it
will.
is a
Absolutely.
master class. It's a master class in coaching, because they show us pregame, they show us at halftime, they show us after the game. It's brilliant. So anywho, sorry about that, but
No,
if you get a chance, watch it.
I mean, that message is brilliant
Mm,
because none of us know when our last moment's going to be. And, I was very blessed with two parents who really lived their life as fully as they were capable of doing. Um, my father and mother started a baking business in their 80s. They would get up at midnight, they went to a bakery, they would bake, then they would deliver, and then they were home by 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. My brothers and I thought they were crazy,
yeah.
but my mother loved to bake, and my father loved to make people happy with baked goods. And so it was perfect for them. And it was seeing the things that they did that really have resonated in me.
Mm,
Now, not everybody is lucky enough to push through, but we all can. And sometimes it means we need the helping hand of a coach like yourself, myself, or the thousands of other coaches that are out in this world. There is somebody who can help you take those steps. So, how can
yep.
we follow you, Tom? Because I know my listeners want to know more about you and everything you do.
Yep. So we have a website, which is professionalswinning.com. And you can find us there. You can learn more about us there, and it's places to you can see how to contact us, and that's where we are. And that's our presence right now. So if
Sounds
anyone has any issues, you can find us there. You can contact us. You can watch some of our content. Um,
wonderful.
and that's it. And we are here. We didn't set out to do this, this consulting. We call it, we're here to help, is what we say. And everyone says life coach. No, no, no. I am not I'm a basketball coach. That's what I am. And I happen to be a basketball coach who can help some folks. And that's what I am at my core. And that's what my dad was. And that is how, at the beginning, you mentioned it, and that is where we're following in his lead. We learned a lot from him. He was not a super bright guy. He kept everything simple. He kept as your son would understand, we were big on the fundamentals. We didn't get complicated. We didn't get complex. If you watch his teams play, it was very simple. We didn't have any sophisticated offenses or defenses, or no one. We just played. We had three or four things we did really well. That's all we ever practiced, those same three or four things. And when we got onto the court, we were like machines. It was like a fine-tuned machine. We knew what was happening because he was so prepared. We knew what the other team was doing, and it was like we were anticipating what was happening on the court because we were so prepared. We were so trained because we were so focused on the fundamentals. And in life, you don't have to be brilliant. If you stick to the basics and the fundamentals in a lot of different areas, but you don't have to make things complicated. You can have unbelievable success by keeping things simple.
Wonderful. I love that message. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
will share my son's information with you offline.
great,
And
great.
thank you for an
Yeah,
exhilarating conversation this
yeah,
morning.
yeah. Thank you, Karen, for the time. Look forward to connecting with anyone who's a basketball guy. Um, and well done on 11 years. Great job. And stay on that
Thank
bike.
you. I will. Thanks. Bye
Okay,
bye now.
great. Thanks, Karen. Take care.